Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I am ready to start working on my 2021 December daily album. I have spent a little bit of time planning and preparing. I will add a link up above right now to my previous video where I'm talking about my process and walking you through my supplies. But before I get stuck in with creating some pages, I just wanted to quickly show you what I have done to try and streamline this process for myself. I did print out some small photos just onto plain copy paper of all the photos that I wanted to be documenting in my album. Then to accompany that, I just quickly jotted down a list of all of the stories and put them into order. Once I had done that, I've got this little A5 grid notepad which I picked up from an office supply store, and I have gone through and I have planned out my pages for each set of photos. So I've looked at the set of photos that I have, I've looked at the page protectors that I have, and I've gone through and I've planned out everything and made some little notes. And I'm hoping that by doing that, it is going to make the process of bringing the album together a lot faster, because I've done a lot of the planning and the thinking ahead. Now, in terms of my album, in my previous video, I did talk about the fact that I was not super happy with the outside cover. So I have actually ripped that album apart, recovered it, and now I am just waiting on a delivery of some binding posts so that I can pop it back together. But what that means is that for now, I'm just using one of these Simple Stories binders. I've got a few of these in my craft room. The holes line up, but as you can see, it doesn't fit properly, but I'm totally okay with that. This is just a place to hold my pages until I've got my album back together. So let's dive right in and start making some pages. Okay, so I like to include a family photo either with all of us together or individual family photos at the start of all of my December daily albums, and this year was no exception. This photo was actually taken a few days into December when we were celebrating my little boy's birthday, and I'm totally fine with using that even though it's not chronological. This year for my album, I am approaching this in terms of telling stories rather than documenting individual days. I think for me that's a better approach because I just found that the pressure of trying to find a story every day was making this project feel a little bit heavy. And now that I have started working on this album already, I'm finding that the approach of telling stories rather than documenting days is so much better for me personally. So while I've been chatting away there, I'm not really going to be doing a whole lot to this photo. I am just going to build a little cluster of layered embellishments down in the bottom left. Now, I recently watched some really old Maggie Holmes process videos over on Big Picture classes, and I have been so inspired by the way that she layers up all of these beautiful textural elements to create really interesting little clusters. So I felt really inspired by that, and that's what I am trying to replicate here. I started off with a little frame. It's just a die cut paper frame, and I've trimmed that down and popped that on. I also have some white crepe which I have trimmed down to about 1 inch wide. Then I used a little bit of really thin adhesive, double-sided adhesive tape, ruffled it up and ran it through my sewing machine. And now I'm just pulling out a few little bits and pieces to tuck some layers in. I've got a gold foil label which I've just trimmed the end off it and tucked that behind a sticker which says Light and Love. And these little paper scraps that I'm working with here are actually branding strips from one of the Uniquely Creative papers. And I've just trimmed those down. I've torn off an edge and I'm tucking that underneath that little Light and Love die cut piece. Then I took it back over to my sewing machine and added a little bit more stitching. So I stitched horizontally across the crepe, and now I've stitched vertically down the end of that little tag the little flag, and that's keeping it in place. So I wanted to add just a little sprinkle of some bits and pieces to finish it off, and I thought that my little bowl of gold stars would work really well, but I wasn't happy that with the contrast of the gold stars, they were getting lost there. So I've gone into my stash of products and I've found this really dark, almost like a maroony red cardstock, and I've just cut out some, or punched out some little hearts. I punched out 3, but I'm only going to end up using 2, one slightly larger and then one teeny tiny one using that little Fiskars hand punch that you can see there. So I am going to apologize for the sound of my voice. I am still getting over a cold, so I know that I'm sounding a little bit nasally at the moment, and yeah, hopefully I'll be over it soon for recording the rest of my voiceovers. Now, I did cut some footage out of this. I made a little bit of a boo-boo and I put that photo onto the back of the wrong piece of paper that I had already completed in my album. That's why it's got the holes punched in it already. So I just carefully lifted that up and now I'm popping it down on the back of the correct piece of paper. But I'm not really sure what happened. My measurements were slightly off, and so I have this tiny little overhang of paper behind my photo. I didn't want to trim it down because that paper is actually sized perfectly to fit behind the transparent element that I have in the front of my album. So rather than trim it down, I've gone into my bag of trims and ribbons, and I found this really pretty textured lace piece, and I'm just going to tuck that in underneath the photo just to cover that little bit of overhanging pattern paper there. And I'm tucking it in with my fingers now, and off camera I'm going to go and add some wet adhesive just to make sure that it's stuck in place really well. And I'm showing it to you there. I think it looks really pretty. That's the back there. It's that wood grain paper that sits behind this transparent title page here. And that's all done, popped away in the album. So now I'm ready to start working on story 1. So the first story in my album is a picture that I took of a little space in my craft room, which I had for the first time ever brought some Christmas decorations into my crafty space. We don't have a huge amount of decorations in our house, and for anyone that has watched any of my videos previously, it probably comes as no surprise that I love everything pink. I don't think I would get away with having a pink tree or too many pink decorations in the rest of my house, but since this space is all mine, I can go to town and add as much pink as I want, and that's exactly what I did. It made me super, super happy to have that little bit of festive cheer in my crafty space. This is definitely my favorite space in the house to hang out, so having that there just made it feel a little bit extra special during Christmas. Again, while I'm chattering away, I am working here on my journaling card. So I had some 6x6 gold polka dot pattern paper, which I've just trimmed down to 6x4. I've trimmed down some plain white cardstock to, I think, 5.5 by 3.5 inches, and then layered that on top of the gold foil, the gold polka dot foil. I traced around this pink chipboard frame, which I knew that I wanted to add, and then used that as a guide to type my journaling out on my sewing machine. Now, because I am telling stories and not documenting days, my initial thoughts was that I wouldn't actually number any of my spreads, but then I realized my plan includes 25 stories, and this sticker sheet that came with the Rosie Studio collection had 25 numbers on it. So I thought, what the heck? I will number my stories. So I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to use those same ones throughout my album. They are a little bit thin, so I'm just putting them onto some plain white cardstock and using my 1-inch circle punch to punch those out. So to finish this off, I'm just going to add a few of these little gold glitter stars onto the journal page. Onto the journal card. And I am not doing anything at all to the photo. I'm leaving it exactly as it is. It's beautiful, it's pink, it's bright, it's festive, and I am trying to keep things simple in this album. So I've got some close-up photos coming in just a moment. If you are new to my channel, I would love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would also love for you to leave me a comment, let me know what you think, say hello. I'd really love to hear if you're working on any December daily or Christmas projects this Christmas in July, as I am. I will leave it there and say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.